The human body is made up by a web of systems that work together. These include the circulatory system, digestive system, respiratory system, nervous system, muscular system, skeletal system, endocrine system, reproductive system, urinary system, immune system, lymphatic system, and the integumentary system. However, we'll focus on the essentials today, specifically the digestive, respiratory, circulatory, and reproductive systems. Here's what you need to know about each of these systems. The digestive system is responsible for breaking down food, absorbing nutrients, and getting rid of waste. It all starts when ingestion happens. As food enters the mouth, it is then chewed up into smaller pieces. Amylase in the saliva begins breaking down carbohydrates into simpler sugars. After chewing, the food is rolled into a ball-like structure called a bolus and swallowed. The bolus then moves down the esophagus through rhythmic muscle contractions called peristalsis, which push it into the stomach. The stomach releases gastric juices, including hydrochloric acid and protease enzymes like pepsin, which break down proteins. The acidic environment not only helps with digestion, but also kills harmful bacteria. The food is churned into a half-liquid mixture called chyme, which is slowly released into the small intestine. In the small intestine, most of the digestion and absorption happens. The pancreas sends in digestive enzymes like amylase, lipase, and protease through the pancreatic duct. The liver produces bile, which is stored in the gallbladder and released into the intestine through the bile duct to help digest fats. The inner surface of the small intestine is covered in tiny finger-like things called villi, which increase the surface area of absorbing nutrients into the bloodstream. After the nutrients are absorbed, what's left moves into the large intestine where water is reabsorbed and the remaining waste is prepared for digestion. Finally, the waste is passed out of the body through the rectum and anus. The respiratory system makes sure our bodies get the oxygen they need and get rid of carbon dioxide. Even though breathing and respiration are often used at the same time, they aren't the same. Breathing is simply the physical act of taking in air, inhaling, and letting it out, exhaling. But respiration happens in the cells where oxygen is used to produce energy. When we breathe, air enters through the mouth or nose and travels through the larynx into the trachea, which is kept open by rings of cartilage. The trachea splits into two bronchi, one leading to each lung. Inside the lungs, the bronchi branches into smaller tubes called bronchioles, which end in tiny air sacs called alveoli. The alveoli is where the exchange occurs. Oxygen moves from the air into the bloodstream, while carbon dioxide from the blood moves into the alveoli to be exhaled. The oxygenated blood then travels to all of the cells in the body where it's used in aerobic respiration. At the cellular level, oxygen is used to break down glucose in a process called aerobic respiration. The chemical equation for this process is glucose plus oxygen equals to carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP, or mostly known as energy. This reaction happens in the mitochondria of cells, releasing the energy the body needs to function. The intercostal muscles and the diaphragm work together to make inhalation and exhalation possible. As the chest expands, the lungs fill up with oxygen-rich air, and as it contracts, air is pushed out. A thin layer called the pleural membrane surrounds the lungs, reducing friction as they expand and contract, making breathing smooth. The circulatory system acts like the body's transport system, moving oxygen, nutrients, and waste products around. Some examples of the waste products would be carbon dioxide, urea, and other substances that the body needs to remove to maintain a healthy balance. The heart is the pump that keeps the system going, and it's divided into 4 chambers: the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle, with the septum separating the left and right sides. Blood flows through a one-way system thanks to valves that prevents it from flowing backwards. Deoxygenated blood without oxygen, from the body enters the right atrium through the vena cava. From the right atrium, it passes through the tricuspid valve and into the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps this blood through the pulmonary valve and into the pulmonary artery, sending it to the lungs, where carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen. Oxygenated blood then returns to the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. It flows through the bicuspid, also known as mitral valve, into the left ventricle. The left ventricle, which is the strongest chamber of the heart, pumps the oxygen-rich blood through the aortic valve and into the aorta, distributing it throughout the body. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart, while veins like the vena cava carries deoxygenated blood back to the heart. The valves in the heart, like the tricuspid and bicuspid, make sure that blood flows in the right direction. This circulation keeps repeating, ensuring that every cell in the body gets the oxygen it needs and that waste products are removed efficiently. The reproductive system is a biological system that creates new life, involving organs in both males and females that work together for the process of reproduction and fertilization. In the female reproductive system, the process begins with ovulation, which occurs in the ovaries. The ovaries are small almond-shaped organs that store and release egg cells. Each month, typically one egg matures and is released from an ovary into the oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube. This tube is lined with cilia, tiny hair-like structures that gently move the egg along towards the uterus. If fertilization occurs, it takes place in the fallopian tube when a sperm cell from a male fuses with the egg cell. This fusion results in the making of a zygote, which is a single cell containing genetic information from both parents. The zygote then begins to divide and develop, eventually becoming an embryo. The embryo travels down to the uterus where it implants itself into the endometrium, the thick, nutrient-rich lining of the uterus. This implantation allows the embryo to grow and develop into a fetus, which continues to mature until childbirth. However, if fertilization does not occur, the egg cell does not implant into the uterine lining. Instead, the body sheds the endometrium through a process called menstruation. Menstruation is the regular discharge of blood and tissues from the uterus, which exits the body through the vagina. The cervix, a narrow passageway, connects the uterus to the vagina and serves as the gateway for sperm to enter the uterus during fertilization, as well as the birth canal through which the baby is delivered during childbirth. The male reproductive system is focused on the reproduction and delivery of sperm cells, which are needed to fertilize the female egg. Sperm cells are produced in the testes, a pair of oval-shaped organs placed in the scrotum, which hangs outside the body to maintain the cooler temperature necessary for sperm production. After being produced, sperm cells are stored in the epididymis, a coiled tube attached to the back of each testes, where they mature. When ejaculation occurs, sperm travels through the sperm duct towards the prostate gland, where they mix with fluids produced by the prostate and other glands. This combination of sperm and fluids creates semen, the fluid that is released from the body. During ejaculation, semen travels through the urethra, which runs through the penis and is expelled from the body. Each sperm cell is highly specialized for its task. It has a tail that propels it forwards, allowing it to swim towards the egg, the middle piece of the sperm, which is packed with mitochondria, which produces energy to power this movement, and the acrosome, a structure at the head of the sperm, contains enzymes that help break down the outer layers of the egg, enabling the sperm to penetrate and have fertilization. The human body is made up of many systems that work together, so here are some connections. Number 1. Heart and lungs. The heart is located right next to the lungs, making it easier for blood to get oxygenated quickly. When blood is pumped from the heart through the pulmonary arteries, it doesn't have to travel far to reach the lungs and pick up oxygen. The oxygenated rich blood then follows back to the heart through the pulmonary veins, ready to be sent to the rest of the body. This efficient setup makes sure that our bodies get a steady supply of oxygen, helping us stay active and alert. Number 2. Digestive system and blood vessels. The small intestine, where most nutrient absorption happens, is surrounded by a large web of blood vessels. This makes it easy for nutrients like glucose and amino acids to move from the digestive system directly into the bloodstream. From there, the heart pumps these nutrients to cells throughout the body, providing the energy and materials needed for growth and repair. Number 3. Reproductive system and blood flow. In both males and females, the reproductive organs rely on a rich supply of blood to function properly. For example, the ovaries and testes receive blood directly from the nearby arteries, making sure they get the oxygen and hormones they need. During pregnancy, the placenta connects the developing baby to the mother's uterus, allowing nutrients and oxygen from her bloodstream to reach the baby easily. These connections show us how efficient our bodies are, but also reminds us that we must take care of each system. Some examples for taking care of our system would be to stay active for heart health, eat well for digestion, and manage stress for overall balance, which keeps everything working as it should. Sources for these connections are from Marieb Ian and Hoan K., who made the book about human anatomy and physiology, and Khan M.J. and Gleason R.E., who made the book The Role of the Placenta in the Nutritional Needs of the Fetus.